Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Buying a Rolex is always a big deal. Whether you're stuck on a waitlist, building a relationship with your AD, or hoping to get lucky on a walk-in. But imagine being able to skip all of that while on a cruise. That's exactly what happened on my recent trip on the MSC Explora 1, where I bought a brand new Rolex Submariner at sea. In my last video, I showed you what was in stock on board the Rolex boutique, and the comments blew up. People had a ton of questions. Is it a real AD? Are these watches used? Are they charging a markup? Is it safe to buy a Rolex on a cruise ship? So today I'm answering all of that. This is the full breakdown on my personal experience, what I saw, what I bought, how the boutique operates, pricing, inventory, and the truth behind those Rolex at sea rumors. So let's get into it. If you enjoy real-world watch collecting experiences, honest insights, and content that mixes travel with horology, consider subscribing. I post long-form videos every weekend and short every Wednesdays. Now, let's dive into the Rolex boutique at sea. Let's start with the basics first. MSC Explora 1 is part of MSC's new luxury cruise line, and it debuted in 2023. From fine dining suite-only accommodations, it's designed to compete with high-end lines like Regents or Seabourn. What's really set it apart for watch collectors is the onboard Rolex boutique. Unlike the typical cruise luxury shops you see, where brands like TAG, Omega, Tissot are pushed with discounts, Explora 1's hosts a real certified Rolex authorized dealer. This isn't gray market, it's not pre-owned, it's Rolex official with box, papers, stickers, and all. When I first heard about this, I was skeptical. Could it be really the same buying experience as a land-based boutique? Was this some marketing gimmick to sell display models? The only way to find out was to go see for myself, and that curiosity led me to one of the most interesting watch buying moments I've had to date. Alright, let's address the first major question I keep seeing in the comments. Is this legit? A lot of people assume that anything watch related on a cruise ship must be fake, pre-owned, or a tourist trap scam. Some even claim they heard stories of people getting fake boxes, missing links, or being sold knockoffs. And honestly, I don't blame the skepticism. That reputation exists for a reason, and most cruise ship jewelry stores are not Rolex authorized dealers. But MSC Explora 1 is different. It does have a Rolex boutique on board, but it's a private, exclusive boutique designed specifically for Explora Journey passengers. This isn't a land-based retail store pulled from the standard Rolex AD playbook. Instead, it operates under a separate partnership model between Rolex and MSC Explora Journeys to offer timepieces exclusive to guests sailing with them. Now, here's a key nuance. Because of this unique setup, the Explora 1 Rolex boutique is not listed on the public Rolex website under authorized dealers. That's not because it's fake, it's simply because it's not a traditional standalone retail location. It's part of an exclusive cruise-based experience operating with Rolex blessing and selling only brand new watches, stickered with box and papers, direct from the distribution network used specifically for this environment. One more detail for full transparency. When I bought my Rolex Submariner, the price was about 2 to 4% above standard US MSRP. This isn't some shady markup, it's built into the pricing model for the boutique and still significantly less than what you'll pay on the secondary market. And with no sales tax, it ended up being a solid value. The buying experience itself felt every bit as polished, professional as any land-based boutique I have ever visited. Clean displays, a calm vibe, and a very knowledgeable sales associate, and this was no tourist trap. Now to the question everyone always asks, what do they actually have in stock? Surprisingly, quite a bit. During my visit, the boutique had a Submariner, a Submariner date, both versions of the Explorer 2, the polar and non-polar variants, several two-tone date dust, definitely green, blue, silver, blacked out, Oyster Perpetuals, a lot of gold sky dwellers, and day dates. To be clear though, the display window doesn't reflect the full inventory. The boutique has very limited display space, only a few watches are shown at a time, but behind the scenes, they operate differently. There's a secure safe deep in the lower part of the ship, and that's where most of the inventory is kept. Each day, the sales associate brings up trays of watches and coffins and rotates the selections to show something new. So unless you ask what else they have available, you might never know if they had a Submariner or Explorer 2 or a GMT sitting just a few decks below. For me, this actually made the experience more authentic. Unlike a display window stacked with "look but don't touch" exhibition models, you're having a real conversation. I was actually the first person in line that day to visit the boutique, and when the doors opened, I asked right away what was available. I officially asked for a GMT Pepsi, Batgirl, the Daytona Panda, and the usual dream list. The sales associate was very straightforward and respectful, letting me know that there weren't in stock at that time. But when I mentioned the Submariner, he smiled and said, "Yes, we have that." A few moments later, he brought a brand new Submariner from the safe, and also pulled the Submariner date from the display window, so I could try both side by side. That moment was such a contrast from a typical AD experience on land. It was very calm, low-key, no pressure, just a simple, honest opportunity to buy. And again, inventory changes weekly depending on restocks and what's sold during each cruise. What I saw might not be there for someone else the next week, but based on what others have reported, we have seen GMT Batgirls, Bruce Waynes, Sprites. Some people even picked up OP41s, Celebration dials. Some people picked up 1 meter a dial. And of course, this all depends on the luck of the draw. If you're even remotely thinking about picking something up, it's always worth asking what's in the safe. Now, the next most popular question I get is, how many watches can you buy? And what's a contention model? These are great questions. On the Explorer 1, a contention model typically refers to more sought-after stainless steel sports models, like the Daytonas, the GMT Master 2s, the Submariners, the Tiffany Blue, the OP Greens references. These models are limited to 1 per person, and when I sailed, the rule was 1 contention model ever. But recently, cruisers have reported that it's been relaxed to 1 year, but I cannot verify that. As of right now, only could verify what has happened during my sailing. The non-contention models, like the two-tone dates, the full gold day dates, or sky dwellers, don't fall under the same restrictions. So yes, technically, if you want to and had the funds, you could buy multiple non-contention models during your trip. I saw one comment that made me laugh, and someone joked, "Next will be Flipper's live streaming auctions on the boat." And hey, well, that's obviously not how it works. I get where the reaction comes from. With this kind of access, the temptation is real. Another viewer has commented, "I would have bought at least 3 watches on that cruise." And honestly, I get it. When you're standing in front of a tray full of watches that you never see together on a land-based boutique, let alone be offered to try and buy, it's incredibly tempting. But the boutique staff is sharp about tracking purchases and enforcing Rolex policies. When you're ready to buy, they'll ask you for your suite card, which is tied to your guest profile and used to track Rolex purchases made during the sailing. This system helps enforce the 1 contention model per guest rule and ensures people don't abuse the inventory during their voyage. That being said, there are workarounds some people have considered, like cruising with family or friends who are willing to use their suite card to make a purchase on your behalf. Of course, this only works if they knowingly forfeit their own chance to buy a contention model in the future. So, even though you're limited to 1 contention model per sailing, like a Submariner, GMT Master, a Daytona, you can still purchase multiple non-contention models on the same cruise, such as the two-tone dates, the full gold day dates, full gold sky dwellers, that don't fall under the high-demand contention models category. So, if you're looking to pick something up like a steel Submariner and a two-tone dates, that's totally possible, as long as the steel sub is the only contention piece that you're buying. The staff will walk you through what qualifies and keep it clear and above board. Alright, let's move on to the next topic. Let's talk about pricing. Rolex pieces on the Explorer 1 are not technically sold at US MSRP. There is a 2 to 4% in-stock convenience fee added by the boutique for the onboard purchase experience. So yes, it's slightly above MSRP, but will be below gray market prices. And you're getting a new stickered watch with full warranty and papers from the official Rolex boutique. There's no bundling, no games, no unofficial markups, just a modest premium in exchange for access and convenience. And here's the real kicker. There's no sales tax on board. As someone from a state with about nearly 10% of sales tax, that alone made a huge difference. Even with a 2 to 4% premium added, the overall cost still came out favorable compared to buying the same watch at MSRP plus tax on land. For me, it felt like getting a boutique level experience with a built-in discounts and without sacrificing authenticity or service. Now, let's talk about the customs. The boutique 100% reports their purchase to the country of residence. So if you're returning to the US, that means anything over $800 personal exemptions is subject to import duty. When I bought my Submariner, their manager did tell me it's a roughly 1 in 15 chance of being flagged during disembarkation. Unfortunately for me, I was flagged and I ended up paying about $300 to $400 of duty when returning to the States. That said, I have seen people on Facebook Explorer groups and cruise credit forums who also have bought watches and got flagged by customs, but they weren't charged after inspection. So your experience may vary and enforcement seems somewhat discretionary, but on the bottom line is this: plan ahead, budget for the possibility of paying duty, and understand that Rolex and Explorer are fully compliant with the customs law. There's no avoiding of reporting the process, even if you luck out on enforcement. And for those who are wondering if you could just mail the box and papers home to avoid customs, no, that won't work. So another question I usually get after posting about the Rolex boutique on the MSC Explora 1 is that, do people line up every day? And how early do you need to be there? The short answer is yes, lining up matters, especially if you're hoping to score a high demand piece like a Daytona, GMT Master 2, or a Submariner. I personally lined up about 1.5 hours before the boutique opened on the first day. It wasn't a crazy crowd. It was just me and one other guy at first, but we made the most of it. We grabbed drinks, I had a nice cold beer, snacked on some bar nuts and chips, and we talked about watches. He mentioned he was hoping for an OP41 green dial if the heavy hitters like the GMTs and Daytonas were not in stock. Funny enough, that's exactly how he ended up getting his watch. While we were waiting, the manager of all the onboard watch stores actually came by and jotted down our names. This is when he was heading to the ship's safe to grab the day's watch trays, the coffins. Once the boutique opened, at least 5 other people rushed in, but they were quickly turned away and asked to join an appointment list. Only the 2 of us who have waited were allowed to go in first. So if you're serious about buying a contention model, get there early on the first night of the cruise. That's when inventory is the freshest. The staff are most likely to accommodate eager buyers fairly. After that first wave, foot traffic starts to slow down. I'd say they helped about 10 people that night, but by the next day, the boutique was really quiet. So early bird really does get the watch on this ship. Now, for the final question, how much was the cruise? Now, beyond just the watch, I want to talk about the cruise itself, because the value you get on board plays a huge role in how this Rolex experience comes together. I booked my MSC Explora 1 sailing early on after the buzz around their maiden voyage, and I was able to lock in a great deal. I worked with a travel agent who offered about $1,200 onboard credit, and since I booked directly during one of the Explora's special promotions, I got another $500 credit on top of that. All in, that was about $3,000 per person for me and my wife, which is incredible value when you realize that every room on a ship is a suite. This isn't your standard mass market cruise line. Explorer Journeys is a true luxury experience. Think unlimited premium alcohol, Michelin level dining, and a ship that feels more like a floating boutique hotel than a resort at sea. Even the buffet isn't really a buffet. Instead of serving food out of the trays, they cook everything fresh to order, from steaks to pasta to seafood. You can have a beautiful plated meal at nearly every venue, and the service throughout the ship was consistently excellent. It made the entire atmosphere feel premium, and when you're already enjoying that level of quality, walking into a Rolex boutique on board just feels like a cherry on top. So yes, the Rolex was a highlight, but the experience surrounding it made it feel even more worth it. Between travel credits, no tax purchases, and the luxury of the cruise itself, the whole trip delivered way more than just the watch. So that's it. Those are all the common questions I have been getting in my last previous videos. So if you ever thought about combining your next cruise with a shot at a girl piece, I hope this gave you some clarity. Buying a Rolex on the MSC Explora 1 is real, it's official, and yes, it could totally be worth it. Let me know in the comments if you've ever been offered a watch at sea, and if you're considered looking for a cruise just for that one chance. And if this helps or inspires you, hit that button and subscribe. I got a lot more collector stories, Rolex reactions, and upcoming Japan watch tours in the works. Thanks for watching, and safe travels, and keep clocked in.